In the grand dining room of the Sinclair mansion, soft golden light spilled from a crystal chandelier, casting a glow over the lavish yet frigid space. The long table, big enough for 20, was adorned with exquisite porcelain plates and gleaming silver cutlery, but only 3 people sat around it. Alexander Sinclair, or Alex as most called him, sat at one end, his hands clasped tightly on the table, his sharp eyes tinged with frustration. Across from him, his father, Edward Sinclair, sipped a glass of red wine, his face as calm and unreadable as a statue. Beside him, Alex's mother, Eleanor Sinclair, watched her son with a mix of worry and resolve in her gaze. "Alexander," Eleanor suddenly spoke, her voice low but commanding. "What do you think about judging someone not by their appearance, but by who they truly are?" Alex frowned, leaning back in his chair, his tone icy. "What do you mean? How am I supposed to know who someone is if they won't even show their face?" Eleanor met his gaze, her eyes flashing with a hint of challenge. "If you could look beyond the surface, you'd see who Emma, really is." Alex let out a scoff, his fingers tapping lightly on the table. "See her? See what? When she hides behind that veil? A scar? A secret? Or just some game you and Dad cooked up?" "You'll understand," Edward interjected, his voice steady but cutting, "when you're ready to see with your heart, not just your eyes. And here's where our story begins, a tale brimming with emotion, where true love isn't about what we see, but what we feel. If you're hooked on this journey of discovery, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next heartwarming chapters on our channel. Drop a comment below. What do you think is hidden behind Emma's veil? Let's dive into this mystery together." The air in the room grew heavy, as if his parents' words had cracked open a door Alex had no desire to step through. He shoved his plate of cold steak aside, the clink of porcelain echoing sharply in the stillness. "I don't buy it," he said, his voice firm, shattering the suffocating silence. "You can't seriously expect me to go along with this insane idea." "Alexander," Edward replied, setting his wine glass down with a gentle but authoritative motion, "this isn't a suggestion. It's a decision already made." Alex let out a dry laugh, humorless and bitter. He ran a hand through his messy black hair, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "A decision without me? What an honor." "Don't mock us," Eleanor cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. "This isn't just about you. It's about the family, the legacy we've built over generations. And the way to protect that legacy is to force me into some medieval marriage," Alex shot back, his eyes blazing, "to wed someone I've never met, never even seen." "You'll meet her soon enough," Edward said, his tone even and unshaken. "Emma is a respectable young woman from a prestigious family, the Whitfields. This marriage benefits us all." "Prestigious family?" Alex sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Then why does she keep that veil over her face? What's she hiding? A face too hideous to show, or a secret you're both too afraid to tell me?" "Don't be cruel," Eleanor snapped quietly, her hands clenching on the table. "Emma has her reasons, and she doesn't owe you an explanation. Not yet." "But I'm supposed to hand over my entire life to her," Alex retorted, his voice dropping but still thick with anger. "Why me? Why not let her marry some fool who'd jump at this charade?" "Because you're the heir, Alexander," Edward said, his tone hard as steel. "The Whitfields are key to our company's growth. This marriage is a strategic alliance, not just a wedding." Alex's lips curled into a cold smile. "So, it's a business deal. Perfect. No room for love or anything real in this family." "Don't exaggerate," Eleanor said, her voice softening slightly as if to soothe his fury. "We're not asking you to love her right away. Just respect her and fulfill your duty." Alex's hands balled into fists, nails digging into his palms. "My duty? To marry a stranger and give up my right to choose my own future?" "You'll have everything you need," Edward replied, his voice as calm as if discussing a simple transaction. And so will Emma. Unable to take it anymore, Alex shot to his feet, the wooden chair scraping harshly against the floor with a piercing screech. "I don't need this," he growled, his eyes burning, "and I sure as hell don't need her." "You'll meet her tomorrow night," Eleanor said, rising as well, her voice carrying an unshakable resolve. "At dinner. I expect you to behave like the man we raised you to be." Alex stared at his mother, his jaw tight, but he said nothing more. Instead, he turned and stormed out of the room, each heavy step carrying the weight of his family's expectations. The dining room faded behind him, but the suffocating pressure clung to him like a shadow. Up in his room, Alex slammed the door shut, the sound reverberating through the quiet space. He marched to the liquor cabinet, poured himself a glass of whiskey, and stood by the window, gazing out at the city sparkling in the night. Rage burned inside him, sharp and unrelenting. An arranged marriage to a girl who wouldn't show her face. It felt like a cruel joke from fate. He downed the whiskey in one gulp, the fiery burn sliding down his throat, doing little to ease the turmoil in his chest. "Tomorrow," he muttered bitterly, "tomorrow I'll meet this Emma and see what game they're playing." But he promised himself one thing: he wouldn't make it easy for them. The next evening, the Whitfield estate buzzed with preparations for the crucial dinner. Alex stepped into the main parlor, where wood-paneled walls and a grand fireplace created a space both warm and imposing. He tried to keep his composure, but beneath the surface, irritation simmered. Edward nodded in greeting, while Eleanor forced a smile, smoothing her silk dress to hide her tension. "She'll be here soon," Eleanor said, her voice striving for cheerfulness. "Great," Alex replied dryly, adjusting his shirt collar to mask his discomfort. Moments later, the soft click of heels echoed on the polished wooden floor, light yet magnetic. Alex looked up, his eyes locking onto a figure entering the room. A woman appeared, guided by an older man he recognized as Charles Whitfield, Emma's father. She moved with effortless grace, tall and poised, radiating an undeniable presence. A long veil draped from her head to her shoulders, revealing only her striking grey eyes, piercing as if they could see straight through him. "Alexander," Eleanor said, stepping forward with a welcoming smile. "This is Emma." Emma tilted her head slightly, her voice low and clear, carrying an odd calm. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Alexander." Alex hesitated, his gaze fixed on the veil. He extended his hand out of reflex, but his mind swirled with questions. "Likewise," he said, his tone lacking warmth. "A mere formality." They sat around the dining table, an awkward tension settling over them, like an invisible shroud. Plates were served, the clinking of cutlery filled the air, but Alex couldn't focus on the small talk between their parents. His eyes kept drifting to Emma, her stillness, her concise yet meaningful responses, and that mysterious veil. Halfway through the meal, his restlessness boiled over. He set his fork down, turning to Emma, his voice low but edged with defiance. "You don't have to keep that on forever. No one here's going to judge you." Eleanor shot him a warning glance, but Emma didn't flinch. Her grey eyes met his, eerily calm. "Thank you for your concern," she said softly, "but I'd like to keep it on." Alex raised an eyebrow, a hint of mockery in his tone. "Why? What are you hiding? A face you don't want anyone to see." "Alexander," Eleanor hissed, her voice sharp with reproach. "It's fine," Emma said, her tone steady, unshaken. She held his gaze, unflinching. "I'm not hiding anything important." "Maybe not to you," Alex countered, leaning back and crossing his arms. "But what about me? I'd like to know who I'm supposed to spend my life with." Emma tilted her head slightly, her voice calm but firm. "You'll find out in time. For now, all you need to know is that I understand my role in this. I hope you do too." Her words struck like a silent blade, piercing his pride and leaving him momentarily speechless. He opened his mouth to argue, but Charles Whitfield cleared his throat, cutting through the tension. "Perhaps we should try the dessert," he said, his voice gentle yet commanding, steering the conversation elsewhere. The rest of the evening dragged on in strained politeness. Alex's parents tried to lighten the mood with trivial stories, while Emma remained an enigma, her composure unshakable, as if untouched by the chaos around her. When dinner finally ended, Alex walked Emma and her father to the door. As she prepared to leave, he couldn't hold back, his voice low and restless. "Why do you act like this is no big deal?" Emma paused, her hand resting on the doorframe. She turned her head, her grey eyes locking onto his with a depth he couldn't fathom. "It is a big deal," she said, "but not in the way you think." Then she stepped into the night, disappearing into the darkness, leaving Alex standing there, his frustration mingling with a flicker of curiosity he couldn't extinguish. The wedding day arrived in the extravagant, dazzling splendor you'd expect from a union between two powerful families. The venue, a sprawling mansion, was decked out with fresh flowers and shimmering chandeliers that cast a magical glow. Guests in sleek suits and elegant gowns buzzed with chatter, their voices mingling with hushed gossip. Alex stood at the end of the aisle, his posture rigid, his face a mask of barely concealed displeasure. The ceremony, though breathtaking, felt hollow to him, like a play he'd been forced to star in against his will. Then Emma appeared, stepping into view in a stunning white wedding gown, its elegance undeniable. The veil draped over her completely, hiding her face as always, and the room fell silent. She glided forward with a quiet grace, her presence commanding yet enigmatic, the veil clinging to her like a shield. Alex clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room zeroing in on him. Whispers floated through the air, barely masked by polite smiles. "She's still not taking that veil off," a voice murmured behind him. "Maybe there's a reason," another replied softly. The ceremony unfolded with an eerie formality. They exchanged vows, slipped rings onto each other's fingers, and the officiant declared them husband and wife. "You may now kiss the bride," he said, his voice warm and ceremonial. Alex hesitated, glancing at Emma. She tilted her head slightly, but made no move to lift the veil. With a stifled sigh, he leaned in and pressed a brief, perfunctory kiss to the fabric over her cheek, more a gesture than an act of affection. Polite applause rippled through the crowd, but Alex could sense the undercurrent of tension, the judgmental stares boring into him. The reception that followed took over a grand ballroom, alive with flowing champagne, music, and laughter. But between Alex and Emma, a chill lingered. They sat side by side at the head table, yet the space between them felt like an ocean. Alex sipped his drink, his eyes scanning the crowd. Fragments of conversation drifted to him through the festive noise, slicing into his pride like shards of glass. Why won't she show her face? Is she hiding something? Can you imagine marrying someone like that just for a deal? Alex gritted his teeth, shame and anger surging within him. He stole a glance at Emma, who sat with that same unshakable calm, her posture poised and serene. She seemed oblivious to the whispers, the veil still cloaking her face in mystery. As the reception wound down, Alex and Emma were ushered to a private suite prepared for them. The air turned heavy the moment the door clicked shut. Alex yanked off his jacket, tossing it onto a chair with a sharp thud. He spun to face Emma, his frustration finally boiling over. "Are you planning to keep that thing on forever?" he snapped, jabbing a finger at the veil. Emma calmly removed her gloves, placing them neatly on the vanity. "Until I'm ready," she replied, her voice even and measured. Alex let out a bitter laugh, laced with sarcasm. "Ready for what? To show whatever you're hiding, or do you just enjoy this little game?" Emma turned to face him, her grey eyes piercing through the veil. This isn't a game, Alexander, and I'm not hiding anything important. Not important to you, he shot back, but what about me? I had to stand there while everyone whispered about my wife like she's some riddle. Do you have any idea how that feels? Emma's gaze didn't waver. If their opinions matter more to you than I do, maybe you should rethink what this marriage means. Her words hit him like a punch, striking a nerve he hadn't expected. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I just want the truth, Emma. Why won't you let me see you? When the time is right, she said simply. And who decides when that is? He demanded, his voice edged with irritation. I do, Emma replied, without a trace of hesitation. Alex stared at her, frustration and confusion tangling inside him. Finally, he turned away, grabbing a bottle of whiskey from the room's bar and pouring himself a glass. Fine, he said curtly. Keep your secrets, but don't expect me to wait around forever. Emma didn't respond. She sat at the vanity, removing her earrings with her usual meticulous care. Her silence filled the room, thick and unyielding. Alex downed the whiskey, the burn in his throat doing nothing to soothe the ache in his chest. This wasn't the life he'd dreamed of, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was more than she let on. As the night wore on, they retreated to opposite corners of the room, the distance between them as vast as ever. But in the quiet moments before sleep, Alex found himself wondering, once again, what lay beneath that veil. The days after the wedding passed in a strange silence and a polite distance. Alex avoided Emma as much as he could, locking himself in his office or driving off for hours to escape the stifling air of the mansion. Yet despite his simmering frustration, he couldn't help noticing things about her. The way she moved through the house, always graceful and assured, or the quiet authority she carried with an unshakable calm. One late morning, Alex stumbled into an unexpected moment. He was in his sunlit study, flipping through a stack of documents about a merger proposal teetering on the edge of collapse. His irritation spiked as he reread the numbers, the deal slipping further out of reach. Need any help? Alex jolted, looking up to find Emma standing at the doorway. She wore a simple, elegant dress, and as always, the veil shrouded her face. I didn't know you were there, he said gruffly. This isn't exactly your thing. Emma tilted her head, her voice steady. You might be surprised. Before Alex could protest, she stepped closer, her presence both quiet and magnetic. She picked up a sheet of paper, her gloved fingers skimming the text. It's not the numbers, she said after a moment. It's the wording in this clause. It's too vague, makes the partners uneasy. Alex frowned, leaning in to see where she pointed. You think that's why they're hesitating? I don't think, she replied simply. I know. Reword it, clarify the terms, and they'll sign. Alex studied her, taken aback. How do you know that? Emma set the paper down, her demeanor relaxed. I may not live in your world, but that doesn't mean I'm blind to how it works. With that, she turned and left, leaving Alex staring after her, her words sinking in slowly. A few days later, another unexpected scene caught his attention. He was cutting through the garden toward the garage when laughter drifted from the kitchen. Curious, he paused at the door and peered inside. There was Emma, veil still in place, standing near the counter, chatting warmly with the staff. Her voice was kind and inviting, and the employees clearly adored her. Today's pastries are incredible, Mrs. Hale, Emma said, her tone genuine. They're so beautiful, it's almost a shame to eat them. Mrs. Hale, the head chef, beamed. You're too kind, Mrs. Sinclair. You'll make me blush. But it's true, isn't it? I've been trying to perfect that recipe all week. Emma let out a soft laugh, her hands clasping in front of her. If you ever need a taste tester, just call me. Alex watched, noticing how the staff responded to her with affection and respect, their ease around her palpable. Despite the veil, she had a way of making people feel seen, something Alex hadn't anticipated. As he walked away, the image of Emma standing there, warm and composed, lingered in his mind, a stark contrast to the cold, mysterious figure he'd once imagined. Over the following weeks, Alex found himself observing Emma more, though he'd never admit it aloud. He noticed the dignity in her every gesture, the subtle ways she contributed to the household, and the sharp intelligence that slipped through in their rare conversations. One evening at dinner, she caught him off guard with a question that cut deeper than he expected. "How's the merger going?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with curiosity. Alex hesitated, unsure whether to brush it off or engage. Finally, he set his fork down. "It's a mess. The partners are still on the fence, even after we revised it." Emma nodded, thoughtful. "Maybe they need more reassurance. Have you considered inviting them here? Sometimes meeting the person behind the deal changes everything." Alex blinked, startled by the suggestion. "You think that'd work?" "Worth a try," she said simply. To his surprise, Alex took her advice, and it paid off. The meeting happened, and the deal closed soon after, leaving him both relieved and unsettled. As days turned into weeks, Alex began re-evaluating his initial judgments about Emma. She wasn't the detached, unfeeling stranger he'd pegged her for. Beneath that veil was a woman, smart, kind, and insightful, who seemed to wield a quiet strength he hadn't seen coming. Yet the veil remained a constant reminder of the gulf between them. One night, sitting alone in his study, Alex gazed out the window, his thoughts consumed by Emma. She wasn't what he'd predicted, and for the first time he wondered if the problem wasn't that she wouldn't reveal herself, but that he hadn't truly tried to see her. The relationship between Alex and Emma slowly thawed, but an invisible wall lingered between them. The veil. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the mansion, Alex reached his breaking point. He sought Emma out in the library, where she often retreated with a book. She sat in her usual chair by the window, the faint glow of a lamp illuminating the veil that still shrouded her face. "Emma," Alex began, his voice sharper than he'd intended. She looked up, her grey eyes calm yet wary. "Yes? We need to talk," he said, stepping closer. Emma closed her book, setting it aside. "About what?" Alex hesitated, frustration bubbling up. "Why do you keep hiding behind that veil? Do you think I can't handle seeing you? That I'm too shallow to accept whatever you're keeping back?" Emma's gaze held steady, though he caught a flicker of emotion in her eyes. "This isn't about you, Alexander," she said softly. "Then what's it about?" he snapped, his voice rising. "Because to me it feels like a test. How long I can stand being married to a mystery." Emma rose, her movement slow but deliberate. She turned her back to him, hands clasped tightly in front of her. "It's not a test," she murmured. "Then why?" Alex pressed, stepping nearer. "Why won't you let me see you? Do you think I'm not mature enough to face the truth, or do you just not trust me?" Her shoulders stiffened, and for a moment Alex thought she'd walk away without answering. But when she turned back, her eyes blazed with a resolve that stopped him cold. "Do you really want to know why, Alexander?" she asked, her voice even but edged with something sharper than usual. "Yes," he replied firmly. "Because I want you to see who I am," she said, her tone unwavering. "Not my face or what others say about me, but the real me. I'd hoped you could look beyond the surface." Her words hit him like a blow, stealing the air from his lungs. Emma continued, her voice quieter now. "But it seems I was wrong. All this time, you fixated on what you can't see instead of what's right in front of you." Alex opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. For the first time, he saw how shallow and judgmental he'd been. He'd spent so much energy resenting the veil, convincing himself it was the barrier, that he'd missed the depth of the woman wearing it. "I'm sorry," he said at last, his voice barely a whisper. Emma softened, though a trace of sadness lingered in her eyes. "I don't need an apology, Alexander. I need patience and understanding." Alex nodded, his throat tight. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I judged you for something I didn't understand, and I made this about me when it wasn't." The corners of Emma's lips curved into a faint smile. "Everyone has blind spots," she said. "The question is whether you're willing to move past them." For the first time, Alex felt a spark of hope, that they could move forward together. "I want to try," he said earnestly, "to really see you, not just what's under the veil, but everything you are." Emma studied him for a moment, her eyes searching. Then she nodded, her voice soft but firm. "Then we'll start there." As she returned to her chair and picked up her book, a quiet peace settled over Alex. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time he was ready to face it, not as a man obsessed with appearances, but as someone eager to understand the woman he'd married. And though the veil remained, Alex realized it no longer defined her. It was just one piece of a larger story he was beginning to want to unravel. In the weeks that followed, Alex made an effort to change. His conversation with Emma echoed in his mind, and he knew if this marriage was going to work, he had to approach her with genuine patience and curiosity. One morning, over breakfast, he took the first step. "Emma," he started, setting his coffee cup down, "I've been thinking about what you said, about seeing the real you. I'd like you to join me in the business. You're sharp, and I could use your input on some projects, if you're willing." Emma looked up from her plate, her grey eyes meeting his through the veil. "I'd be happy to help." Alex felt a wave of relief, though he kept it hidden. "Good. There's a meeting this afternoon about the Whitfield merger. I think your perspective could make a difference." That afternoon, Emma joined him in the boardroom for the first time. The directors were visibly surprised to see her, curiosity flickering in their eyes, though no one dared mention the veil. As the meeting unfolded, Emma listened intently, hands folded in her lap. When Alex asked for her thoughts, she spoke with clarity and confidence. "It's not just about profit," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "It's about sustainability. If you want a lasting partnership, you need to show the Whitfields you care about their success, not just yours." The room fell silent, absorbing her words. Alex watched as the directors nodded in agreement, clearly impressed. Later, as they walked back to his office, he turned to Emma. "You were incredible in there," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. Emma tilted her head. "I just spoke the truth. Sometimes that's what people need most," Alex replied. Over time, Alex leaned on Emma's advice more often. She had a knack for cutting through complexity, whether it was business or personal matters. One evening, as they reviewed a proposal in his study, Alex paused to watch her. She was focused, her gloved fingers tracing the page, jotting notes with precision. "You're really good at this," he said, breaking the silence. Emma glanced up, her eyes softening. "I've had good teachers." Alex smiled, recognizing her humility as yet another layer of the person he was starting to understand. Their bond grew beyond work. Alex began noticing Emma's subtle kindness, how she treated the staff with warmth, or the small, thoughtful things she did for him, like leaving a cup of tea on his desk during late nights or suggesting books he might enjoy. In return, Alex showed his care by asking about her day, including her indecisions, and letting her know her presence mattered to him. One evening, as they sat in the garden, Alex turned to her. "I've wanted to ask for a while," he said, his voice hesitant. "Why did you agree to marry me?" "You didn't have to." Emma was quiet for a moment, her gaze on the flowers swaying in the breeze. "Because I saw potential in you," she said at last. "I saw someone who could become more than he thought he was." Alex's chest tightened. "And have I lived up to that yet?" Emma met his eyes, a warmth flickering in her gaze. "You're getting there." Despite their progress, the veil remained a quiet reminder of the distance still between them. One night, sitting by the fireplace, Alex brought it up again. "Emma," he began carefully, "I don't want to push you, but do you think you'll ever take the veil off?" Emma didn't turn away, her voice steady. "When the time is right." Alex nodded, a pang of disappointment tugging at him. "I get it. I just want you to know I'm here whenever you're ready." For the first time, Emma reached out, resting her hand on his. "Thank you," she said softly. In that moment, Alex realized the veil wasn't the barrier he'd once thought. It was just part of her story, one she'd share when she was ready. And until that day, he'd wait, trusting that what they were building was worth the patience. The grand ballroom of the Sinclair mansion glowed with life, music swirling, laughter echoing, and glasses clinking in celebration. Chandeliers cast a warm golden light over the crowd of impeccably dressed guests, the air buzzing with anticipation. Alex had spared no expense for this gala, a lavish tribute to the Whitfield merger's success and the future of the empire he was building. He stood near the stage, chatting with a cluster of investors, but his mind kept drifting to the sweeping staircase, wondering when or if Emma would appear. She'd been unusually quiet about her plans for the evening, and her absence was starting to stir whispers among the guests. "Where's your wife tonight?" an investor asked, his tone curious but polite. "She'll be here," Alex replied, though a flicker of doubt gnawed at him. Just then the hum of conversation hushed as all eyes turned to the staircase. Alex followed their gaze, his breath catching in his throat. There at the top stood Emma. She wore a shimmering emerald gown that hugged her slender frame, radiant and breathtaking. But it wasn't the dress that drew gasps from the room. It was the fact that for the first time her face was bare, free of the veil. Emma descended the stairs with the grace of someone born to command attention. Her revealed features were striking. High cheekbones, luminous skin, and those grey eyes gleaming with a wisdom beyond her years. Alex stood frozen, his heart pounding as she approached. The murmurs rippling through the crowd barely reached his ears. "She's gorgeous. Why hide a face like that?" Emma paused at the bottom of the stairs, her gaze sweeping the room before settling on Alex. A faint smile curved her lips as she walked toward him, the crowd parting instinctively to let her through. When she reached him, Alex found his voice, though it came out softer than he'd meant. "Emma, why now?" She met his eyes, her expression calm yet resolute. "Because it's time," she said simply. Turning to the crowd, her voice rang out clear and steady in the hushed room. "I know many of you have wondered why I always wore the veil," she began, her tone even but layered with emotion. "Some thought I was hiding a scar, a flaw, or something shameful. But the truth is far simpler." She paused, her eyes scanning the faces before her. "I wore it because I wanted to be seen for who I am, not my appearance, for my thoughts, my values, my actions. We're so quick to judge by what's on the surface, and I didn't want that to define me, or my marriage." Her words hung in the air, the room captivated by her raw honesty. She turned back to Alex, her voice softening. "I kept the veil because I needed to know if you could see beyond it, if you could truly see me." Alex's chest tightened, her words cutting through every doubt and frustration he'd ever felt. He stepped closer, his voice low and thick with feeling. "I see you, Emma. I think I always have. It just took me this long to realize it." The room seemed to fade as he spoke, his focus locked on her. "I was so fixated on what I couldn't see that I missed what was right in front of me. Your kindness, your brilliance, your strength. That's what I've come to love." Emma's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her smile held steady. "And I love the man who was willing to grow, to learn, and to see past his own assumptions." Alex reached for her hand, his fingers closing around hers. Emma, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I care about you, and I'm grateful every day that you're my wife. The crowd erupted in applause, a few cheers breaking through as they witnessed the moment unfold. Emma and Alex stood there, their connection undeniable in the smiles they shared. For the rest of the night, Emma moved through the room with a newfound confidence, engaging guests and charming everyone she met. Alex stayed close, introducing her to those she didn't know. His gaze filled with pride as he watched her shine. By the time the night wound down, it was clear to everyone that Emma wasn't just the beautiful woman who'd unveiled herself. She was a force to be reckoned with, a partner worthy of admiration and respect. After the last guests departed, the ballroom fell silent. Alex and Emma stood together on the balcony, gazing out over the estate. A cool night breeze rustled the air, the sky glittering with stars. Alex turned to her, his voice earnest. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand. You deserved better. Emma smiled, leaning into him. We all grow in our own time, Alexander. What matters is that we're here now. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. Whatever comes next, I don't care. As long as we face it together. Emma looked up, her eyes sparkling with joy. Together, she agreed. As they stood there, staring out at the horizon, Alex realized the journey they'd traveled, full of misunderstandings, challenges, and revelations, had led them to this moment. And for the first time, he was certain their future stretched out before them, as vast and brilliant as the stars above. After the gala, Alex and Emma stepped into a new rhythm of life, their relationship evolving in ways neither had anticipated. The veil was gone, but its absence was just a small piece of the profound shift between them. Alex no longer saw Emma as a puzzle to solve or a duty to fulfill. He saw her as his partner, someone who challenged him, supported him, and made him better. Emma, in turn, opened up fully, sharing not just her intellect, but her warmth, her humor, and the vulnerabilities she'd once kept hidden. Their mornings often began with coffee in a sun-drenched breakfast nook, where they'd chat about the day ahead or their long-term dreams. Alex came to crave these moments, not just for Emma's practical insights, but for the quiet closeness that had grown between them. In business, Emma's influence became undeniable. Alex brought her into high-stakes decisions, and her sharp perspective earned the respect of his team. She didn't linger on the sidelines, she dove in, offering solutions that blended creativity with pragmatism. One afternoon, during a critical meeting about a new project, Alex introduced her to the board. Before we start, he said, his voice steady, I want to formally introduce someone who's become invaluable, not just to me but to this company. My wife, Emma. The room offered polite applause as Emma stood, poised yet humble. She has a gift for seeing what others miss, Alex continued, pride lacing his tone. Her input has already driven major wins, and I'm excited for you all to work with her. Emma gave a small smile. Thank you, Alexander. I'm honored to contribute and eager to collaborate with everyone here. As the meeting unfolded, it was clear Emma was no figurehead. She engaged with confidence and clarity, her ideas sparking lively debate and earning nods even from the toughest skeptics. Beyond work, Alex and Emma began exploring shared passions. They'd visit art galleries, attend charity events, and travel to places that stirred their souls. Through these experiences, they uncovered a harmony that went far beyond their arranged beginnings. One evening, strolling hand in hand through a bustling market during an overseas trip, Alex turned to Emma with a tender smile. Did you ever think we'd come this far? He asked. Emma laughed softly. Every day, especially when I think back to how much you hated that veil. Alex chuckled, a touch sheepish. True, but now I'm grateful for it. It taught me how to see you. Not just your face, but everything that makes you who you are. Emma squeezed his hand, her voice warm. And I'm grateful you were willing to learn. Months turned into years, and their bond grew unbreakable. Together, they built a life that fused their strengths and values, creating not just a thriving business partnership, but a marriage rooted in love and mutual support. Alex often marveled at what Emma taught him about the world and himself. She showed him the power of patience, humility, and looking beyond the surface. Emma, in turn, admired Alex's willingness to change, his ability to own his mistakes, and his unwavering commitment to their shared future. The final scene unfolded in the boardroom of Sinclair Enterprises, where Alex and Emma sat side by side at the head of the table. This was a pivotal meeting, charting the course for the company's next big venture. As Alex opened the discussion, he paused, turning to Emma with a smile. "Before we dive in, I want to thank my wife, Emma. Her vision shaped this project, and I couldn't ask for a better partner, in business or in life." Emma met his gaze, her smile gentle but assured. "Thank you, Alexander, and I couldn't ask for a better teammate." The room buzzed with quiet agreement as the meeting kicked off. Later, as they stepped out of the building together, the city skyline glowing in the distance, Alex turned to Emma. "I never thought we'd get here," he admitted. Emma tilted her head, her eyes twinkling with joy. "Neither did I, but we've done pretty well, haven't we?" Alex grinned, pulling her into his arms. "Better than I ever hoped." As they stood there, the future stretching out before them, Alex realized the life they'd built wasn't just a product of circumstance. It was a testament to the power of understanding, respect, and love. A love not born from first impressions, but from the truths they'd uncovered about each other along the way. And in that moment, he knew they were exactly where they belonged. Together. And so, the story of Alex and Emma comes to a close. A journey from distance to devotion, from misunderstanding to unity. What did you think of this ending? Does Emma still have secrets up her sleeve, or has she shown Alex all she wanted him to see? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button to support the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next heartfelt tale. Would you like to hear a story about love defying prejudice or another mystery unraveling? Let us know in the comments, and let's create more warm, unforgettable moments together. Thanks for joining Alex and Emma on this ride. See you in the next video.